Our favourite person to talk to in the world about the madness happening in the United States, especially the parting of the ways for Kamala Harris, is none other than the wonderful Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly Show, Sirius XM, YouTube, podcast, all the rest. But most importantly, the only place on Aussie TV you will see her right here, right now with me here on Sky News. Megyn, hello, my friend.
It's great to see you, Paul.
Now, I, like you, am so frustrated and angry at watching the people who are supposed to be the representatives of the citizens in the system, i.e. the media, and they are just carrying Kamala Harris's water. They are parting the Red Sea for her. They are redirecting rivers for her, and it exposes everything that's wrong about them. And we could talk about that for an hour, but it's working.
Yeah. That's the problem. I mean, it's only August. Trump's still got time, but we may be witnessing the collapse of this election for him. And it is largely media driven. It's an astroturf personality that they have created in Kamala Harris. And the voters who are going about living their own lives, not worrying about media coverage and bias, are buying it. They're like, oh, we didn't really like Trump and we didn't like Biden, and we've been given a new third option, and she seems kind of nice. So yeah, let's go for that. We don't really blame her for the economy or the border. Like, vice president, what do they do? It's ceremonial. She seems nice enough, and she's not 200. So we'll vote for her. That's what's happening. And any controversy that comes up around her, her background, Tim Walz, his background, gets A, ignored, or B, completely excused, and we all get gaslit on it. And look, this is not the first election cycle in which they've done this, but the depth of the cynicism has surprised even me. I actually did not expect them to be this bad. I've never seen it this bad. And now the polls are dramatically shifting away from Trump.
But also, the stuff that sends me crazy is that, something Donald Trump did years ago, that still counts. Something J.D. Vance said years ago, that still counts. Something Kamala Harris did in her current job, doesn't matter. What she promised and ran on and believed and reinforced didn't happen. And again, it's working, but we have to take a second to say something's really broken that somebody is able to seemingly get away with not being held to account for anything in their past.
You know, I think about it a lot because I have to distinguish between me, the individual, and me, the journalist. As a journalist and a commentator, it's not my job to shift an election or to try to swing an election one way or another. Correct. But as a human, it's incredibly frustrating to watch the media gang up on one side, run cover for the other, and then still cloak themselves in nobility. You know, we're the gatekeepers, we're the fact checkers, we are the ones who will fight misinformation, while they mislead my fellow Americans every day. So I get incredibly angry that the side I think is reasonable and will restore order here in the United States is so far from getting a fair shake that they're getting completely twisted and turned and lambasted by this media, these media enablers every day, which is not their job. And then I have to remind myself that my job as a member of the media is not to try to persuade people to go the other way. It's just to stay in the factual realm and tell the stories that others won't tell and stay factual, notwithstanding the enormous gaslighting we're getting, and blow back. You know how it is always before the election as a member of the media. If you don't go along with the party line, they start attacking you too. But it's all on steroids this year. It's on steroids this year because they're back from the dead. You know, Biden's out, Kamala's in, there's enthusiasm for her, and they just know if they could just check their ethics for another 2.5 months, they could have this. They could have what they want. They could have all of their leftist policies. They could have abortion on demand. They could have a black woman in the office take down Trump. It's every leftist fantasy. It's like, if I just check my ethics for a few more months, I can have what I want. And to me, it's just, it makes me boil inside, right? It makes me boil. But it's not the first time it's happened. You know, it's Trump got it so bad in 16, I keep reminding myself, it's not insurmountable. He could still overcome this. And also, as members of the media, it's not our job to declare him dead before he's dead, or her for that matter.
Well, but also what I find and, let's do a little therapy session in front of everyone while watching. But, Dr. Kelly helped me out here for a moment or two, which is I know that we all know that there's a huge consequence whichever way this thing goes, right? Now, those of us of a certain worldview that we share believe there's a right path and a wrong path. The consequences for going down the wrong path is colossal changes that are irreversible, that is, take your pick on any type of issue, right? Which is why when these people get exposed for having the ridiculous positions, they're unable to get a vote. But of course, if you've got no positions and it's just a brand, but again, I don't want to sit here, bitch and moan and whinge. The reality is that the other guy's got to step up. And, it's great that he has these 2-hour sort of long chats for those who have the patience to sit around for 2 hours. But he's got an advantage on social media where on all bar TikTok, there are more people that are following him than her. He has the capacity to, in my view, do a rally during the day and a town hall at night, which is only covered not by CNN, but by locals. He's got ways to be able to go around them, but he doesn't seem to. Now, do you think he's just waiting, or do you think the reality is that he is 8 years older than when he was hungry, and he isn't fighting the way that somebody who's got it all on the line should be fighting?
He's out there, but he doesn't have message discipline. And every opportunity he gets, whether it's the presser he held on Friday or the event with Elon last night, he's long-winded, rambling, and kind of fuzzy. It's like, what is he saying? He's taking so long to make a point that should take him 2 sentences to make. And I'm losing interest, and I'm kind of bored. And this isn't worth it. There are more and more reports of people, even at his rallies, which go on forever, walking out, leaving early. They love Trump. They're going to vote for Trump, but they're not entertained by him in the way they used to be. And he is getting, and I'm sorry, this may sound cruel, but it's my observation, a little more like your elderly grandparent or parent who rambles on too long, and you're kind of like, all right, wrap it up. I don't have all day to listen to this. Make a point, start with a thesis, and then your little bit should have a crescendo and a decrescendo and land at some point. Instead, we're getting these long stream of consciousness things that are hard to follow and not fun to listen to. And it doesn't help messaging, and it doesn't help inspiration, right? Like Kamala Harris, for all that we're ripping on her for, she's doing a good job of getting into these rallies, sticking to the script that was written for her, saying banal but slightly inspirational things like, we're not going back. When we stick together, we win. People like that. It's working. It sticks in people's heads. She's on message, and Trump isn't. It's the old, how do you solve a problem like Maria, except in this case, he's Maria. How do you solve this problem of a 78-year-old, businessman like Trump? To get him on message, he feels like he has the right to say what he wants, and he feels like he knows better, and he's got a history that tells him he does. But what happens when that history doesn't match the present-day reality of the world and of you?
The other one here is that at the Democratic convention that'll be in the next little while, there's going to be a farewell night for Joe Biden where everyone will stand and give him a round of applause. He, of course, was very plausibly accused of sexual assault. You're the one who did the interview with the woman who accused him of that. But the Democrats, of course, Trump's the predator. Then there'll be Bill Clinton, and he'll be there on one of those nights, and we all know about everything in his past all the way through to Epstein Island. Yet he will get a standing ovation. Do these people not understand that we can see their double standard, which is why when they attempt to throw it back at Trump, it doesn't hurt the way they think it does?
They don't care. They don't care. Bill Clinton is an icon in their world. So is Hillary. So is Joe, because he passed the torch, so willingly and certainly not under pressure. They control everything. They control the media, obviously, they control Hollywood, they control sports, they control big corporate America, they control the academy, the colleges and the academics. And so they will, just very Orwellian, tell us how we're supposed to feel about Bill Clinton, that those women were trailer park losers who made up terrible stories about this wonderful president, that Joe Biden didn't touch Tara Reade, and she's just a bitter, bankrupt, poor loser. Not like, these elite, wonderful men who we're supposed to look up to. Scranton Joe, just one of us who made it all the way to the presidency. Down home Barack Obama, despite his Harvard undergrad and law degree, who's really just one of us. They'll sell these lies because they're really good at selling these lies. And they will have the top Hollywood producers there putting a gift wrap around them. And they know how to make them look beautiful and sellable. And most people, back to the original point of this discussion tonight, who are living their lives, my imaginary viewer, Madge, who owns a farm in Iowa. She's out there all day.
And probably a firearm.
Tending to her, maybe a firearm too.
Yeah.
And she's tending to her animals and to her farm and to her crops and what have you, and her kids. And she doesn't sit around watching the news all day, and she doesn't get to listen to the news all day. And she comes home and she catches a little bit of the news on the night, and ideally tunes into the MK show and gets to know Paul Murray and people who will speak sense to her, but not enough necessarily for her to be able to separate all the wheat from the chaff. And all the other inputs in her life will be a very different message, to where at best, the right side of the country can hope that she's confused, right? At best, actual mental clarity on all these issues requires true paying attention, because the subterfuge is so deep and everywhere. So it's just, the odds have always been stacked against the Republicans, but they've never been so lopsided as they are now. And on top of all of that, there's a very unlikable candidate. I realize Trump's people love Trump, and I'm highly entertained by Trump, but he's not liked by the country writ large. And he's never been able to crack really even high 40s unlikability and approval rate, because his negatives are so high. The one advantage he had up until 3 weeks ago was so were Joe Biden's. And you'd always have to say that. Trump's negatives are very high, but so are Joe Biden's. And now that's changed. Her favorability rating is through the roof compared to his. There was actually just a poll that came out, it's an outlier, that people trust her more on the economy.
Yeah, I can't.
Kamala
This is
Harris.
nonsense. This is.
Yeah, I know.
Please.
But that's the media. That's all the media.